Monday, and welcome to Transformational Mondays with you know who, if you don't know, Dr. JaNee. I am so grateful, so excited. Welcome, happy March, first of all. If I haven't already, welcome to March 2024. Can you believe? Okay, let's just pause for a minute. It just seems literally like it was January 1st, and we were saying Happy New Year. Like the time waits on nobody. My question for you is, how are your goals coming? How is business coming? Where are you at? So, for those of you all who do not know me, my name is Dr. JaNee Mobley. I'm affectionately known as Dr. JaNee, and I specifically work with God fearing women, helping them to grow and build and elevate their businesses so that they can shift their mindset, shift their income, and shift their whole lifestyle. I am so grateful that you are here. What sets me apart from everybody else who does what I do is I'm also focused mainly on shifting them, helping my clients shift their mindset because I understand that our income is very similar in parallel to where our money is. Our mindset and our money run together. So, welcome to Transformational Mondays, where I am totally focused on providing you with tips, simple tips. Because that's one thing about me. I'm very simple. I think God is simple, and that's where I get the foundation of my all of my beliefs from, right? So, where I share simple tips on helping you to transform your mindset so that you can build the businesses that you desire and live your lifestyle. If you haven't already, make sure you text this link to about 2 or 3 people and invite them in. I promise you, it's gonna be so good. The revelation that God gave me, let me tell y'all, I was like all over the place in my Bible. What was that, yesterday? Let me back up a little bit. I was like literally all over the place in my Bible. Like my mind was just going. And I was studying, and I've been studying mindset because that's something that is very important to me. I know when my husband and I were homeless, mindset was the very thing that I worked on the hardest. Let me hear y'all, right? In our most darkest and challenging time, when finances were very challenging, right? To come across, I realized that the difference between me and somebody who was wealthy and rich and successful financially is my way of thinking, right? Our ways of thinking were very different. And I said, I really promised myself, I said, you know what? I'm going to focus on my mindset. I started reading, I started listening to the right things. And how did I get books while homeless? I went to the library because it's what? Free. So I would check out books, I would read books, go back and check them out, read books, go back and check them out. And I worked hardest on myself. And I'll tell y'all, I think I told that story one time before, but about a couple of, probably about almost a year later, my husband and I were able to transition back into a home of our own that we now own. And I'm so grateful. And I attribute that, of course, most of all to God. At the same time, it took for me to begin to adapt the higher way of thinking, right? Which was his way of thinking, which all is mindset. So let me tell y'all, like literally what God gave me before I went live. So you know how people make mindset one word. So I made it separate. So when you look up the word mind, it's our intellect. It is literally the definition according to Webster is the element or complex of elements in an individual that feels, that perceives, wills, and especially reasons. So we want to make that into Dr. Janee's definition, right? Is our mind is the place that allows us to think. Our mind also is, when you look it up in the Bible, your mind is your heart, right? This is one of the reasons why our emotions are drawn from our hearts, right? So when you look up, I believe it's the Greek term of heart, it also includes your mind, which includes your seat of emotions, right? So this is why we make decisions from a place of emotion, because our heart includes our mind, which includes our seat of emotions. When you look up the word set, I want you to all, some, what was it, a couple of years back, and I'm sure people still do this, they have roller sets. They get rollers and they roll them up, like for women, roll your hair up, and then what do? You let the roller sit in there, you let the roller set in there to allow your hair to set to the curl pattern by the roller that you are using, right? So what happens happens in a set. You're sitting there, you're placed there. So what happens with mindset is that your mind is literally sitting in a position, right? Your way of thinking is sitting in a position. I want y'all to catch that. Mind, which is your way of thinking, your beliefs, it allows you to perceive things and reason things. Set means a place that you're sitting in, a place that you're placed in. So our mindsets, when we put that together, is our way of thinking that we're set in, that we're sitting in, right? And here is the thing. One of the things that I realize is that inclusive for our mindsets, and I done got ahead of myself and I got so excited, right? Right? Is that our way of thinking that we're set in can hinder our progress, right? So our way of thinking is just like somebody who obtains wealth through work, through education, through shifting their mindsets, through learning and accumulate wealth, right? They have the mindset. So they progress, they prosper. When you look up one of the definitions for prosper, it means advancement, it means progress, right? So for the person who has worked on their mindset, they're able to progress. Like for me, when my husband and I were homeless, I studied mindset really, really hard. Like I really, really worked on myself was the main thing that I did. So we were able to transition from being homeless, sleeping in the car, sleeping on people's floors, bunking at people's houses, right? To being able to shift and up level and progress and advance into moving back into a house, right? The house that we ended up renting, they offered us to purchase it. So now we are home owners, right? And I share all of that to say that there was a progression, there was a prosperity, there was a process that got there. But what did it and what anchored it is my way of thinking that I was set in. Right? And here is the thing. One thing that you want to understand is that you want, while you are sitting, we have to understand that we can get up, we can move around. So this tells me that our way of thinking can be stretched, it can grow, it can evolve. So I want you to think about where you are, and I want you to think about where you desire to be, and understand by shifting, by unsetting, right? Your current mindset, that your current mind, your current way of thinking, it can also shift the trajectory of your life and your business. I ain't gonna lie, I'm excited when I realize that, right? So back to my point. So what happens is for somebody who, let's say, wins the lottery and has a poverty belief system that they're set in, that has a poor way of thinking that they're set in, that they haven't elevated from, they get all of this money, and it can be a superstar, it can be a star athlete, it can be somebody in music, anybody that comes across, it can be somebody like who died and they willed you all of their money, right? So what's different between a person who literally shifts their beliefs, their thinking, and up levels it, and they're not set in it, compared to somebody who comes across all of this money, right? If you have a poor way of thinking that you're set in, that you're sitting in, the person who has a poor way of thinking and a belief system won't be able to keep the money. While the person who has a prosperity way of thinking, an elevated way of thinking, a person whose belief system and intellectual and reasoning system is willing to grow, is willing to advance, is willing to study wealth, so that they not only are able to maintain the wealth and keep the wealth, but what God's desire is for his people to prosper. Right? So our goal is to take what we have and advance it and grow it. So if you don't have the right thought process that you're currently sitting in, if you don't have the current reasoning and intellectual process and belief process that you're currently sitting in, how are you going to be able to evolve? How are you going to be able to take the money that you have and make it into more? And I'm going to share with y'all this story that many are familiar with in the Bible, because my belief system, I believe in Jesus like he's the most amazing, greatest gift that God has ever given me, right? And I'm gonna read to y'all this story. Well, I'm gonna tell y'all the story. It's just one small point, but how your mindset can literally limit your success. So, for those of you all, so if you look in, and I'm coming from Second Kings 4 chapter, so Second Kings chapter 4. So many of you all may be very familiar with the story. This woman is a wife. She has two sons, and her husband dies. Okay, she has two sons, and her husband dies. Well, she owed money to a creditor. A creditor, of course, is somebody who has loaned somebody some money, and it's time for them to pay up, and they expect to get their money back. So I want you to think about everybody that you owe, every company that you owe, the student loans that you owe, right? She had a need, and he was holding, I believe, the children hostage, right, until she paid the money back. So she had a desperate need. So she goes to Prophet Elisha, and basically, and this is just me putting this in layman's terms, and like what I like to call the JMV version, the JaNee Mobley version. Catch that? It doesn't exist, but so he basically comes to her, and this is what's so powerful to me, and I want y'all to hear this, because a lot of people have a need, right? We talk about how we need money, how we want to move, how we want to do all of these different things, and how you have a need, right? So she goes to the prophet, and the prophet asks her, what do you have in your house? Right? Let's just make it, let me make sure I quote it right. So he says, and Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? So here's leadership in action. I hear so many different things in this story. Here's leadership in action. Elisha, being a prophet, hears there is a problem. So he asks her, he then comes with a solution, right? So as a leader here, and this is just totally off, like the solutions. Leaders are supposed to be solutions driven. Somebody comes, and we should always hear a solution when somebody ever presents us with a problem, or position ourselves to look for a solution. So she came to him and basically say, look, I owe this man some money, and I need some money. So he asked her, he didn't tell her, and here's the most powerful thing, he didn't tell her to look outside of her house. See, a lot of the times we're looking outside of where we're supposed to be looking on the inside of us. Oh gosh. We're looking externally, but when everything that we need is on the inside of us. And this is when we're talking about purpose. So instead of telling this woman to go get a job, look at what he asked her. He asked her, what does she have in her house? And she said, thine handmaid had not anything in the house save a pot of oil. So here's the thing. And when you read on in the story, you got to understand this. And I caught this. He pushed her into entrepreneurship. She had a need, and he pushed her into entrepreneurship. I thought that alone was powerful, because it lets me know that it's God's will for his people to transition into entrepreneurship. When you own a company, it gives you greater control, right? And it takes the limits off of your earning potential. Hear me, and when I say this, everybody is not called to be an entrepreneur. This is why I'm just speaking to entrepreneurs. Some people are called to be supports to entrepreneurs, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, perfectly fine. But I found that it was fascinating. I just thought it was so fascinating that instead of telling her, ask this man, can you go work off the debt with your sons, or go clean somebody's house, right, and work for them, he encouraged her to look in her own house to see what she had to sell. So this tells me, number one, first of all, when you have a need, there's no need to look externally, look internally. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah chapter 1, which is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, and I'm going to tell y'all for several reasons. The Bible tells us that in Jeremiah 1, that he told Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed you in the womb of the belly of your mother. And this always reminds me that God knew me. He knew what he wanted me to do. He knew the change that he wanted me to have and to impact on this earth. He knew who he called for me to serve, right? So when he created me, he already put in me, hear me, he already put on the inside of me everything that I needed to do what he called me to do. Purpose. So there's no need to look externally outside of your house, outside of your own abilities when he's giving you everything that you need internally. What needs to shift is your intellectuality, your reasoning, your way of thinking, and to up level it to a set that's greater than where you are right now. That's it. I'm going to say that again. With mindset, and I shared this at the beginning of the video, by definition, and I'm just going to put my own definition on it, our mind is the element, our ability to reason, to think, and to perceive things, right? When we look at the definition set, it's just like a roller set. You know how back in the day you used to have those sponge rollers? Well, I know I used to wear sponge rollers. And you used to have it set in your hair. You used to literally sit there for a couple of minutes until it gets the curl pattern that you prefer. Then you take the rollers out, and then hopefully the pattern curls and does everything that it needs to do. So when a person has a specific mind and set, it means that their way of thinking is set, positioned, and placed in a certain way. But the great thing about our mindset is that it can shift. It can move, because remember, a set is just a place. It's a place that you're sitting in, which lets me know I can get up and walk to a whole nother set or a whole nother place and have a whole nother way of thinking. This also lets me know that if I want to increase my income, I want to increase my business, I have to get up from my current way of perceiving, reasoning, thinking, and then shift to and set in a greater level of thinking. So when we read the story about this woman, here's the thing. She had to shift rapidly from her current mindset to a place of entrepreneurship. She had to shift her whole way of thinking so that she can make more money. Right? And I hope y'all are getting this, because like for me, it's amazing. Like it's really, really amazing. Like this blessed my whole soul. So number one, I found it fascinating that he, instead of making her or encouraging her to go work for somebody and be a maid or whatever, not to belittle it, he called her to entrepreneurship. The second thing that I understand is that when you look at this woman's mindset, look at her response. And this is what happens with a lot of people. Her response was, thine handmaid had not anything. She said, he asked her what she had. And her response was, thy handmaid, meaning her, had not anything in the house save a pot of oil. The JMV says, I don't got nothing but this oil. And this ain't nothing. So she looked at what she had, and her oil for you is your purpose, your gift, and your assignment. How are you looking at your current business? How are you currently looking at your purpose? How are you currently looking at your gift? Are you like this handmaid who minimized what she had? Are you thinking because you can do it with your eyes closed, everybody else can do it? But the truth is, everybody can't do it as amazing as you do it. Because guess what? God anointed you to do this thing. Right? In the way that you do it. That excites me. But she belittled the very gift, the very thing that he asked her about. She minimized it. And this goes to show me where her mindset was. She was limited. And when you're limited, it's just like this circle here, right? If we look at my nose, right? My nose, or if I had something in this circle, unless I break this circle, whatever is in this circle is limited to this space. So that woman was limited in her way of thinking initially. She had a limitation on her perception of what she had. What is your perception of what you have? Do you think that people won't pay you for something that you're amazing at? Do you reduce your prices like I used to, thinking that, oh, who's going to buy that? That was me. I'll be honest. Like, I was one of those, and let's just tell the truth. While I have amazing confidence now, oh, let me tell you, baby, I struggled because of where my current intellect, my current reasoning about myself was set. So my mindset was limited. So it limited my income. So she saw what she had as small. And here is the thing, when you read on in the story, God took what she had and he multiplied it. Look at this personally. Make this personal. If you are a speaker, if you are an accountant, if you are a coach, if you are a musician, God can take what you think as small and maximize it. You may look at yourself as a little old me when God, just like Jeremiah, is looking at you. He knows you. He knows what he put in you. So he already knows just how amazing you are. So here, if you don't get anything else from what I'm saying tonight, I want you to understand this. Your current mind, your current intellect, reasoning, way of thinking, and perception can be set in a greater place just by making a decision. So, Dr. JaNee, how do I shift my mindset? Think about what mind is. It's your perception, it's your reasoning, and it's your way of thinking. So, one, it starts with a decision. Two, you got to always ask yourself, what am I giving my attention to? And I always love to use this because it's true. Because what you feed your mind, you get more of what you feed your mind. So as an example, when you go on social media, and social media is a great place to show you what you feed your mind. Why? Because the way that social media is set up, and even the algorithm connected on your phone, the things that you watch, I don't care if it's a video for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a second, even if you just, what is it, swiping, right? Because you looked at it, because you paid attention to it, guess what? They're going to show you more of those people's videos and videos similar to it. When you go out of it, and let's say you go into Safari or Google, guess what? The ads that you see are going to match the very things that you paid attention to on social media. So if you go on mine, as an example, you'll see a lot of cooking, because I love me some food. Like, oh gosh, food is just so delicious to me. You'll see a lot of personal development, because that's what I focus my intellect, my perception, and my reasoning on. You can shift your way of thinking. And here's the thing, this woman she had to do it fast. So she made the statement, the prophet gave her instructions, and she followed instructions. And here's the thing, because she shifted her mindset quickly, right? She was able to have more than what she expected. And this lets me know, it always reminds me, the God that we serve, the God that I serve, because I don't know who all look on here. Okay. The God that I serve is the creator of heaven and earth. And he created everything amazing here. God doesn't want to limit us. He doesn't want to minimize us. He wants to maximize himself in us. Only when we are willing. I always say this because I know it to be true. God never does anything small. The idea that he has given you, while it may have started out to seem very, very small, guess what? He wants to take that and enlarge it. He wants it to prosper. Remember, prosper means advancement. It means promotion. It means progression. So I want you to ask yourself, how am I perceiving? How do I see myself and the idea that God has given me? How do I look at it? And then the thought process of selling it. Here's the thing, and this is one thing I want to encourage you all with. There's nothing wrong with making money. And I say that because of course, duh. But here's the thing. When you shift into entrepreneurship, right? Your goal is to profit. And sometimes some people's way of thinking is let me start this out or have people purchase this at a smaller amount because you're in fear that people won't buy. But the reality of it is this. When we look at the story in the Bible of this woman, after the oil was multiplied, she sold it. People bought it from her. I'm sure they could have gone somewhere else to purchase the oil, but they came to her. Hear me and hear me well. Just like there are various types of different oils, your oil, you personally, your purpose, which is your purpose and your assignment, people will pay you maximum dollar for your oil because of the value of your oil. They'll pay you because they know that they will get the solution to whatever problem that they have, and they'll pay you a lot of money for it. So I want you again to remember to take your current place. I don't care what your perception is about yourself and your lifestyle. There's always a greater level. Remember, the Bible tells us that I think it's above all things, and forgive me if I'm misquoting it. I wish that you be prosperous and in good health. This tells me that God wants us to progress. He wants us to advance, and he wants us to profit. How can we be a blessing to others if we're struggling? And here's the other mindset shift. How do I serve a God who owns everything in this earth and created everything amazing, and the very child that he created is suffering? How does the math and how does that even go together? How does that even go together? So I want you to rethink, which is a part of you resetting your mind. And I want you to rethink your perception of yourself and of the gift that God has given you. And I want you to assess how you have been belittling and reducing your gift. Have you been saying things like, "Oh, they won't buy that. Let me reduce the price on it because they're not going to buy it"? Are you fearful of even putting the idea out there to even see if people are going to buy? I want you to ask yourself those questions, because here's the thing. Your money can't go to a place that your mind is not at. And even if your money goes there, the likelihood of your money staying up here while your mindset is down here is very, very small. Again, let's go back to majority of the people who win the lottery who have a mindset of poverty. They get the money, they lose the money. There's nothing wrong with the money, because the Bible tells us that he has given us the power, the ability, the might, the strength to obtain wealth, which is money, right? So ain't nothing wrong with the money. It's something wrong with the mind of the person who's handling and possesses the money. Again, if you look at successful people, all of us bleed. If you cut me, we bleed green. I mean, bleed red. Lord Jesus Christ, I'm thinking about money. We all bleed red. Having a goofy moment. We all bleed red. But what separates successful people from unsuccessful people, wealthy people from non-wealthy people, is where their mind is placed, where their mind is set, their way of thinking. While some people think about money and how to spend it, Wealthy people are trying to figure out where they can put their money, not to save it, but to multiply it. And not to just multiply it effortlessly. It's a whole mindset shift. While people have a poverty mindset, look at investing as risky. People who are wealthy look at not investing as being risky. They look at leaving their money in an account or a savings account or a money market account as being having a moment, as being a waste, because their money can't grow there exponentially. But all it takes is for you to reset, reposition your way of thinking. Think about where you would be a year from now if you repositioned your way of thinking. And here's the amazing thing, you're doing that right now because you're spending time with me. Right? You're spending time with me, and I greatly appreciate that. So for more details on how you can connect with me, make sure you go into the description. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you here so that anytime that I'm live, you can join me. So until next time, know your worth. Good night, y'all. Bye. And by the way, I actually have a link to my book, 40 Days to a Better You, in the description. So make sure you click the description and click so that you can learn more about my book and purchase the book if you're interested. I pray that you all have a phenomenal evening. And remember to know your worth. Bye.